Daniel in Washington. How you doing? And welcome to the show. You're on with Vice, Rhino, and Matt.
Portland, Oregon.
Oh, okay.
Huh?
I'm sorry. It says Washington on here. So.
I said Portland. How you doing?
Well, you're the only caller on hold right now, so I'm wondering if there was a problem with call-in studio or whatever. But that's all right because I'm happy to talk to you. What do you got for us?
Well, I just got a case. Well, my case is that the Gospels have been most likely written earlier than 50 years after Jesus' death. And the
earliest one is about 30 years after, so that would be earlier than 50, I suppose.
Yes, and the way I look at it is Book of Acts. We don't know who wrote it. We don't know who wrote the Gospels.
No,
it was Mark. Luke. Yeah, I agree with that. There's no author written. But if we go forward to 70 A.D., when Jerusalem was
when the temple was destroyed and Jerusalem was besieged.
There was siege. And when Paul was executed, we don't have any of that information in the Book of Acts. But on the other hand, we have information when Jews were exterminated from Rome. We have information when there was a great famine. We have information.
Okay, what's the point?
Daniel, I'm confused. So, I don't really have that much of a position on when Gospels were written. I tend to go with what the bulk of Christian scholars say. As a matter of fact, one of my favorite websites, which discusses this stuff, is not an atheist website at all. It's earlychristianwritings.com. And so if you pull up earlychristianwritings.com right now, are you trying to say that you think the dates there are wrong?
Who? Can you repeat the name?
It's
earlychristianwritings.com.
Like, are you calling in to disagree with the scholarly consensus about the dates of the various Gospels?
Yeah, I disagree.
Okay. So
what is your reason?
My position is...
Hang on.
Well...
No, hang on. Listen. Why would you call an atheist show that has no historians or New Testament scholars on it to tell us that you disagree with Christians about when the gospel was written? You disagree with the bulk of scholarship. Why on earth would you call to tell us that you don't agree with the bulk of the best scholarship? What are we supposed to do about it? And what difference does it make?
Yeah, I'm going to get to my point. If we establish that gospel was written, let's say 45, first gospel of Mark, 45, that's 10 years after Jesus' death. You can go, or you can come and see those people that have...
Okay, but no, like there are no serious scholars that think that Mark was written that early. So, I'm not sure.
You might as well be saying if we had Jesus's own handwriting and DNA, we would have no more questions left. If frogs had wings, they wouldn't bump their ass a hopping. If I asked you what, yes, I agree with you. Well, I don't actually agree with you because I think a decade is still a long time, and a decade is a longer time back in first century, Judea, where you don't. A decade's different now. And yet a decade would be a long time to try to ask somebody to go back. I couldn't tell you what I did on this show 10 years ago, let alone what I did in life 10 years ago. But you're saying that you reject the bulk of scholarship on the dating. I don't care. Who the hell are you? And what evidence do you have? And what difference does it make? Why aren't you taking this to the scholars? Why are you calling an atheist show to tell us how you don't agree with the bulk of scholarship on the dating of the Gospels? What the hell are we supposed to do about it? I genuinely don't give a fuck.
Sir, with all due respect, I just wanted to share I go off Warner Wallace. He's a detective. He has been doing
and he's not a scholar, and he holds a minority.
Why won't you answer my question?
Scholar.
Why are you calling us?
Well, my apologies if that doesn't persuade you in any way. I called you because I'm trying to be a good Christian, sir. And
are you really? Are you trying to be a good Christian by saying that you reject the bulk of Christian scholarship on dating? Is it a good Christian thing to do for you to reject the bulk of scholarship and to call into atheists? What is a good Christian? What about that makes you a good Christian, Daniel?
I do work.
Like Gary Habermas, who is a Christian scholar, disagrees with you. He's one of the fundamentalists. Well, maybe not fundamentalists, but like he holds a lot of positions that secular scholarship would reject, but he disagrees with you about the authorship of like when the books were written. Now, I find the subject fascinating personally. Like I would be happy to talk to you about it at some point, but like this isn't really the purpose of this show. I would recommend maybe reading Bart Ehrman's book Lost Christianities, and he talks about how there is evidence of a bazillion different Christian sects who believed all sorts of different things that were so different from each other that they would make a Catholic and a Protestant look like the same denomination by comparison. And all of these sects existed before any of the Gospels were written. Like a lot of the writing of the New Testament is Paul talking about how you can't believe all these different Christians that are teaching things that I'm not teaching. Like that's in the New Testament. And these are people that existed like before any of the Gospels were written.
When I say
it doesn't matter how early you get it, it's still later than Paul, and there were still a bazillion other Christian sects.
Yeah, when I say I don't give a fuck, I'm genuinely curious and interested in the subject, which is why I'm able to produce websites with information off the top of my head, like earlychristianwritings.com. My question was specifically for Daniel. What the hell is it that you think makes you a good Christian to call into an atheist show to say you don't agree with the dating and you think it's earlier than any good scholar on the planet? What difference does that make? Because let's say I granted you, Daniel. Let's say I'm willing to say all 4 Gospels were written 3 days after the events. Let's say I'm willing to grant that. Does that prove any of it's true?
But we can make inference.
Does that prove any of it's true?
I said to the screener, I am inferring.
Sir, I don't give a shit about inference. That's another thing. Why would you think that would be a good thing?
And you can hang up on me, sir. Then you can hang up, and we can end this call if this is not going to go anywhere.
Okay, I did. See, I said to the screener I was making an inference. Well, what you really mean is you have an idea that is not consistent with the best scholarship. Great. As an atheist, I'd like to make sure that the show is staying close to the best scholarship that I can. Because if I start doing a show where I start using dates that are ridiculous, you know, let's assume that I do the same thing Daniel does, but I go the other direction. So instead of moving Mark from around 70 to 15, I move him from 70 to 130. And then I try to claim nobody could remember stuff for that long and they're all dead and everything else. That would be a dishonest argument against Christianity, just as your argument, Daniel, is a dishonest argument in favor of it. Because at the end of the day, even if all of it was written 3 days later, that doesn't mean it's true. That's independent of whether we have good reason to think it's true.
Right.